Hello everyone. Today we will learn to write a simple program in GoLang. For that you have to install the Go binary from go.dev/dl for operating system you are using. Today here we are ready to write the GoLang program. Go is already installed. You have here the version 1.22, which I think is the last version. So what we want to create today is a simple program for understanding the base concepts of GoLang and how to get started with this language. I'm gonna create a folder for this project. And there within the project, within the folder, we have to run the following command that creates something which is standard step for making a Go project. So you have to initialize the project and give a name for the package. We'll use Go class. We forgot to use Go module init and the name of the package. So we have created this and now we will use Visual Studio Code for that for this project, and we executed the command for initializing the module, Go class module, and here is the version of the Go binary we are using currently. So each project has a main file that is the entry point of the project, main.go, and usually this main file contains also a main function. But first we have to define the package name for this file. This is the main package where the main function is defined. So this is the main function, and we want to create a simple REST API for a service to authenticate users. So For this we have to use the main the standard HTTP library package and define an endpoint for our authentication methods. To create the endpoints for authentication, the endpoint for registration, and endpoint for getting the current user based on key for the current authenticated user. For this we have to define these three endpoints. First we have to listen to the port you see there. Could be any port you want to use from the free ports. There's a range, I suppose, but for now we are using this port. And as I said, we have to define the endpoints. For that there is a function for creating handling a certain route. There is the function handle func, where we have to define those three endpoints I mentioned earlier. Register. The second parameter is HTTP listener. So there is function basically. There is also HTTP listener. Type. As far as I know. Anyway, we create that function that has two parameters: response writer and request. We have now the register function. We have to define the other two endpoints for authentication and last endpoint for getting the current authenticated user. We create the second function for authentication. That has the same signature with two parameters, HTTP response writer and request. And the third is for retrieving the authenticated user. So we define the three functions for each endpoint: register, authentication, and me. So now we have these three functions, and we could test this. But prior to that, we write some data on response for each function. So this program could be ready to be tested. I'm using this app, Rapid API. It's for testing endpoints, testing REST APIs. Now we can run the program by executing GoRun and main file, which is listening and on 8888 port. We're gonna test this endpoint, and by making a call on register, we expect the following message: register not implemented yet. That's it, we got a message, but as you notice, there is get method used for this request, and we need a post method for the register request. Notice that we are using HTTP handle func, which is from standard package. There are many other libraries useful for creating REST APIs. I'm thinking of using a specific library. I got this library, GoChi, that is very lightweight and easy to use. So we are gonna use this library for creating REST endpoints and defining a specific method for the endpoint. So to use a new package, we have to install the package by using the following command: go get user and the URL of the package. So now if we are looking in the Go module file, we are seeing that there is a link to that library we are get installed earlier. So this library is installed and we can use that package. We define new mux for new router from the GoChi that we are using for the following endpoints. So we have to refactor this and use specific methods. So we need for the register we need post. We are using the same endpoint, the same function. Same for authentication endpoint, and for the me endpoint we are gonna use a get method. So we changed 3 endpoints, and here on listen and serve we have to replace nil with the object from GoChi we created earlier. So this is it. We can run the project again and test that is working on the defined methods for the REST APIs. So if we use now get for the register, we'll respond with method not allowed, which is the expected result, and now we are using post, and that should return the expected register not implemented yet. We have these 3 endpoints, and now we have to create our functions. For this to work, we need some sort of storage for our users. For now we can create an in-memory storage. I'm creating a new file for defining our interface for storing the users. So for now there is a new file with the same main package, because this file is on the root folder, and we define our type interface with the name account storage. We're gonna cover more than basic implementation. We'll also cover design patterns, or rather say a specific way of using polymorphism, or rather letting the possibility to create a new adapter for a specific database we want to use later. For now we have to define the interface for the storage. We have the get account by ID. So this function will look for the account based on ID. We also have to define the account. We'll leave it with ID and names for now. And we return here on get function an account, and an error for specific cases. So we have get account by ID, and we also need a function get account by login. We have to define also the login. Login is basically a username, and also we have to define password. So we have ID, names, login, and password. We have the get by ID function, get by login, and for now this is it. Later, if we need different methods, we can define those methods here. And now we have to implement the in-memory storage. To implement that interface, we only have to define these two functions on our structure. We can copy the function definition from the interface. And now we'll create the get by ID login. Get by login function. For now we can return nil for the following two responses. There are many other things, like for example here this account variable is a pointer to account, and basically from my experience, I found it very easy to understand pointers from GoLang rather than languages like C or C++, which are great languages. Yet I managed to learn the pointers from this language, from Go, very easily. So we created I will anyway for this for pointers I will try to tell more of them by when that appears. For example, now there is as I said, this account, and we are using pointer for this. For example, if there will be no pointer for account, then that means nil cannot be returned, and we have to return an account for this case. Our definition is with pointer, but we have to use pointer to match the interface account storage. I think we have to use a different method. Save account. Here we can use pass by value, which means no without using a pointer, and we only return an error for certain validation or making sure the account object contains the necessary data. So in order for our in-memory object to implement the interface, we also have to define the save function. Where we could write simple validation if account ID is empty, return an error with ID expected.
It's 20 hours.
Or we can let this for now to return nil. There are many options to structure a GoLang project. For this example, we are gonna focusing more on making it work, and then we will see if there is a need for any factor, as we did with GoChi library. GoLang also has a function in it that could be used for certain initialization prior to executing the main function. So here we need storage object that is this type, account storage. And we have to use for this storage variable our implemented in-memory storage, or we can use directly here up and delete the init function for now. So we have the storage in memory storage, and we need to create our register function first. We have this type: account, ID, names, login, and password. So we can use now this type and read the request payload and decode the payload into an account object. So for this, we have to read by using IO read all function and pass the body property from the request. This returns the data and error if any error occurs from reading the body. We check if there is any error and write a response. We can place the error we receive from the function. So we have data, and now we have to define an account object that then we decode from data. For that we are using JSON and we are using the standard package JSON, from where we are using the unmarshal function that receives two parameters: the data and reference to our object. So we pass their data and the reference, this sign, and is the reference to a certain object, which is the pointer to that object. As you can see, the unmarshal function returns an error object, which we can check to see if any error. We can use the same write function to write out to respond with the error we get from the unmarshal function. Before going further, we need to define the tag parameters for JSON. And there is also a library for validation. If you want to validate, we are skipping for now the validation process, but there is GoLang struct validation, which is this library I usually use, and this allows you to pass certain tags in your structure, like this validate, and use certain tags, properties, fields, like greater than field or many other. You can see an example here: validate required, greater than, lower than, required email, or whatever you want to use for based on the data you want to define within the structure. for now we are skipping this, and we will check for each property and see the property is containing the data we expect. If account ID is different than, or is equal, if account ID is empty, we display an error. Account ID is empty. We also have to respond a certain status code for our request. For that we are using the response writer parameter with the write header function. For this widow function error, we need HTTP bad request, which is 400 code. We will copy that to unmarshal also, because if the JSON, there is no JSON for it's JSON is corrupted or something, we have to say that the status bad request, we have to respond with bad request. Same for checking for account ID. We are gonna do the same for login and password. Password and login, same for this other two fields, and we leave the name unverified for now. So we have here the account object ready to be saved by our storage. So we can say storage, save, account. We check if there is any error. If there is an error, we respond with the error. Same we did for verifying if there is an error for reading all from request body by using the error function of the error object. And here we say status internal server error. Okay, so we save the account, and to test that, we could use the me function. We could also implement this function to see the account object is stored. We have to also define for this root, this GoChi also allows you to use a certain parameter. We don't need this parameter, but for sake of testing, we are using an ID where we can or much easier solution is to, when we we are testing the me root to respond with the data of storage. Or another option is to use Visual Code in debugging mode and place a breakpoint to our save, well, to our storage save function, and see the data is saved. But for that, we change for in-memory storage, and we define a function data that contains a map with a key string and account. We use a pointer to account. For this initialization, we need to create a function new in memory storage that returns in memory storage, where there is an initialization of in memory storage and initialization of data. And we can change this in main and use new in memory storage. So now in save function, we can simply check for account ID, which is mandatory for saving in our data property. So we check if ID is empty and return an error. Otherwise we save the account in our data property, which here expects a pointer to. We also will use a pointer in our type. It says here that account should be used for this one instead of data. So we have this function, and we could also check if there is already an account with that ID. By making a reference to a key from the map, it returns two variables, which are the first is the value and the second is the Boolean response that tells that the key in the map exists or not. Case is there in the map. We return account already exists. There says account declared and not used. We can use underscore in this case, and will not show any error. So this is our functions, our save function for in-memory adapter. We implemented for account storage interface. And now in our main file we have an error telling that it expects a pointer to account. So we can use a pointer for this variable, and as I mentioned earlier, in me function we could write some code to show our in-memory contents. For that is Marshall, and we pass storage. I think it's enough, I don't know. That is account storage, but also have the data. Oh, actually we placed a breakpoint here, which we can use for our testing. So we go to run and debug. There's a little bit of tweaking. Usually, as I remember, it used to work also by running from selecting the current main file. But seems that I had to change or to create a launch file pointing to the main Go file. So now we can run our project. There is an error on main 11 that says account storage undefined. So the issue here is that the main file is on the root folder, and we could use a separate package for these types. Could use for storage, folder storage, and place the two files there, the in-memory adapter and type, and also change the package name to storage. And now we have to change and use storage and use the package name as a prefix to the type. As you can see, there is variable name that has the same name as the package, so we have to change the name of the variable into account storage. Okay, so we have this new name. We also have to change the change the account and use the prefix of the package where the account is stored. And here for the save we have to use account storage. So we can run the project now again, and see what's wrong. It should process exit. Probably we are using the same port, so we could change this to 85 and see if there is the same. So now started. Probably that port was used by a different service. So the app is running, and we could run it again on our rapid API. And as you can see there, it shows. I know it's because it's already started on the other tab. Now we'll say connection refused. There is nothing on that port. We use this port now, and it says unexpected end of JSON input. So we could also add a breakpoint at the beginning of the function and check and see where there is this error. It should write as a status code, status bad request. I think we have to use this and swap the lines, place the header, right header first. I'm not quite sure of this, but let me test again. So it entered the unmarshal error. The response is bad request. So it says that there is an error on JSON unmarshal, which actually is because the data is empty. We can also check here and see the response. If it's empty, we respond with an error and saying payload expected. So now we could see the payload expected, and we can go further to define our JSON body with the ID, login, and password. ID1, make the request, and it reached the save function. That should show our data saved. There is the ID of the user, of the account, and there is the instance to the account. So it works. Now we could respond to the register function with right header status created, which is 201. We have to also change our save function or rather change the register function and save an encrypted version of our password. For that there is a big crypt package that could be used for creating a password. Generate from password. The package I think is a standard package, but it loads a different package. Anyway, we could leave this plain and move forward to authentication endpoint implementation, where
It's 2030.
where we could where we need to create a payload type containing our login and password. And again to read from our request body. What I notice in this language is that somehow it's so simple, and being that simple, it seems that you have to use a lot copy and paste, but that could be a biased way of looking at it. I could also use a function for this and say decode that receives a request and a reference to the object and also an error. And here we can check if we can't read the body. Return any error if different than nil. So now we removed the duplicate code, and we can directly use here account, storage account, and say decode request account. Check for the error. Could do also the same for the error displaying. Could say HTTP error. I think HTTP already has error function, so something like that. I don't know what this does. Write the header, the code, status code, and prints the error to response. I think that's good enough for what we need. So we can refactor here and say HTTP error, and the error is error. We are passing previously on write function, and then the status bad request. We have to do the same for the other calls of responses of errors. For this one, we use the string containing the error, and again status bad request. Same for the rest of them. Account ID is empty. Status bad request. Account login is empty. Same status code as before. Same for the passport is empty. And finally, for save function, different status code here, so we can also use that in our authentication implementation. We return here bad request if any error occurs from the code function we wrote out here earlier. So if there is no error on the code, we can use our storage and get by login, account login. Can write here, refactor this, change the symbol name, and use payload. And now the result of get by login function is the account and an error. Account, error. We check the error, see if there is any error, and respond with the error. Status not found. And then we have to check if account password is the same with payload password. Otherwise, show an error not authenticated. Not authorized, not authorized. I think the is this one. 401. Status unauthorized. There is an error that says that here we have to use payload password. Account password is different than payload password, and show an error. And for authentication, key, we have to use a library for JSON Web Token encoding. See what we can. There is this library, GoLang JWT. I think there is an example somewhere, or there is a test. I'm looking for something quite simple, something simple. I think this one is good enough. There is no example of using it. Simple example of parsing and validating a token. Let's look for other library. JSON GoLang simple. There is a claim. This looks quite simple enough for our case. Okay, we can use this library as we did for GoLang Chi. We do the same for this library, and create our token with what we need as details. Here for our case we need only the ID. We can leave this secret key here and respond with our key. Let's check if this program works. No error. We can create a new request and check the authentication. This is a register request, authentication request. For authentication, we use the pointer auth that we define, and we have to send the login and password data. So we can check this now. Login, it says 201 created, as we returned in a register function. And now for authentication, we use the same login and password, and this should return authentication key, which did not, because for sure there is something we missed out. Something like, so there is the post method for auth and /auth. And socket closed by peer. Something is not working as expected. We can add a breakpoint, so it enters the breakpoint and see where the error occurs. The error is on get by login, because that function is not implemented. So we could also check here if account, basically there is no need because we already checked for error to be different than nil. So we go to this function defined in our memory implementation and check if the account exists. We have to go for each account and check if the account login is equal with the parameter of login and return the current account. Otherwise, return an error. Account not found. We don't need any key for the range. So this is it. We can restart the application and test this again. There is 201 created, and for authentication it returns our authentication token, which we can use for the me function. So there, in the me implementation, we could we have to use the authentication key. Before doing that, we create another function here in code that sends some data back to the response. So we use JSON Marshall. We also have to return error for this function. And then write the data, check if there is any error. Okay, so this is our function, encode function, that we can use here to respond with a JSON file. You can also define or actually use directly a map for displaying the token, returning the token, instead of plain string. We can test this again and see what is the response. So now we have a JSON response, and I can use this as a dynamic value in me request as a token or access token parameter. So here in me function we have to get the query and decode the query with the parse function from the library we used earlier for encoding. So this is it. Claims get string, and we have to get the string for our ID. So there is something which is missing, but we have to use the secret ID, which is the second parameter. We can define this up here as secret key that we can pass to the verify function as the second parameter. So it said verify has verified claims parse. There is the verify first, If not verified, we respond with an error, unauthorized. Then we parse the claims. And we have to check for ID, for our ID. So get string, as we tried before, ID, and this returns the ID or an error. We have to check the error and see any error. If there is any error, we will display that error back with the code unauthorized. And then from our here account storage, get by ID, and we have now account that we can use to display in response. With our render function that we created earlier. So this is it. Says here render, use of package render. We set encode. Render is from GoLang. They have this render function that is similar with encode. So we have the main, and we can check if that is working. We have register. Remember that we used in memory adapter, and each time you restart it, you have to create again the account. The account is created. Authentication works. Now we have to check the me, and for that we used a get method, and we set our access token in URL params, and says null, which I suppose it returns because our getById function is not implemented. So we have to implement that function. And return the account if the account exists. Here we say account not found. So we have get by ID. Here we have to use ID, So now we restart the program and go directly to the me endpoint that returns the account based on authentication token. So this is it. We could also create instead of new in-memory storage, a database storage, and implement the account storage methods to persist the data. But for now, this is a quite simple example of creating a service for accounts and authentication that you can use for your needs. Thank you for watching, and leave your comments there below on YouTube. Thank you.